Hi, Bob Kipping here, doing my assignment, Personal Communication Analysis. Title of my paper, Your Teeth Are Like a Herd of Goats. The subject of my paper is the interpersonal communication between my wife Ann and I. As a matter of fact, my wife and I were recently listening to a sermon on the Song of Solomon, an Old Testament book of the Bible based on a love letter from King Solomon to one of his 700 wives. I looked at Ann in the middle of the sermon. I gave her my old standby line. Your eyes are like limpid pools, and your teeth are like a herd of goats. Well, we didn't get thrown out of the service, but I'm certain the pastor was not pleased with our semi-squelched giggles and snickers. This, by the way, is one of our many small, if not important, rituals. We share this ritual 2 or 3 times a year, and once the giggling starts, we just can't stop. This is after the better part of 3 decades together, raising 9 children, hers, mine, and ours, and of course, more than our share of ups and downs. After all this, I would have to describe our relationship as an intimate, continuing work in progress. We are at once similar, and yet in some very significant ways, we are opposites. We demonstrate complementarity. While Ann and I grew up in similar cultures, strict German households, and similar socioeconomic status. However, my personality developed into an A-type extrovert, and my wife Ann is just the opposite. She tends to be more reserved and quiet. Of course, this affects the way we've learned to communicate in our relationship, both verbally and non-verbally. I would rate Ann's communication competence as very high, since she can pretty well command my every move, sometimes without a word. You know, just recently our youngest daughter, Victoria, 16 years old, explained to me when I got home she had lost her cell phone, that most prized possession of all teens in today's world. Yes, an utter disaster. Naturally, I said right away, "Oh, honey, don't worry a bit. I will." Just then, I heard the deep breath being drawn through Ann's nose, and I finished my sentence. Ask Mom what we should do. Some say humility is the greater part of valor. I say do as you're told, verbally and otherwise. And life is good. And must be competent, wouldn't you say? After all, training a hard-headed German boy is not that easy. And can also let the children know with just the piercing look of the eagle eye that they have crossed the boundary and proceed at their own peril. As for me, if I see the look, I just turn, whistle a little tune, and make for the safety of another room. In fact, relational maintenance over the many years demands many such comfortable accommodations, if you wish to enjoy life at all. We were living in Florida for the past 25 years, and about 12 years ago, Ann and I decided to move back to Syracuse. We started searching for a home. We each described what we wanted most, and it was just about as opposite as we could be. And of course, off we went, Ann seeking a modern structure near the metropolitan areas of Syracuse. Lots of culture, close to everything. Well, I wanted a big old white farmhouse with a giant yard surrounded by woods. After many tense rambling discussions and much touting of the wisdom of our own personal desires, we began to look at houses, and there was no easy in-betweens. One day I set up a showing for a modern brick ranch style on the water in a good school district, close proximity to the city. Of course, it had a tiny little yard, not exactly my dream home, But I thought this would be just what Ann wanted. And after all, I had had just about enough of this. Well, there we were, talking to the agent. As the agent looked at me and Ann, she said, "What about that view?" "Ah, it's beautiful," I exclaimed. And I turned to look at Ann, standing with her hands crossed, tapping her foot, and she said, "Yeah, just beautiful." Well, I guess I don't have to tell you. We thanked the agent for her trouble and started to head for the car. I made up my mind at that point Ann was going to get the silent treatment all the way home. I just couldn't figure out what her problem was. You know, after all, I had given in on almost everything I wanted. All she had to do was come out here to this appointment. I know she didn't want to go, but all she had to do was come out here and see that I had given in to everything she wanted. But no, that wasn't good enough. So off we went, me in a huff. Well, about halfway to the rental apartment, Ann said, "Could we take a left up here and go home the back way?" Naturally, I said, "Why not? Let's just take the longest, most rural route to where we're headed." Just what I want to do. Well, about 3 miles down the road, she asked me to pull over, and since all I could see was the color red, I just pulled into the grass. And suddenly, a for sale sign appeared in front of my eyes. It was the most beautiful 1890 white farmhouse I ever saw. You guessed it. We still live there. We love it, and our 3 youngest have a wonderful community and school experience. You talk about environment. This was as good as it gets. Along with the physical environment, the children are enjoying the benefits of a long adult lifetime, adjusting to the different cycles in a relationship, compromising, knowing how to cope with the dialectic tensions inherent in every long-term relationship. Through many ups and downs, and some of them nearly destroying the marriage, I think we've learned that we do need each other to be a successful family. We do have an interdependence. However, we each, and all in the family for that matter, must have space outside the family unit or outside of the intimate twosome. We have to have our own work, our own friends. And along those lines, you know, it's entirely possible for me to hear in the same week, "Where have you been?" if I haven't called Ann at work enough. Just a few days later, have her shouting, "You've called me 1,000,000 times today. Don't you know I have a job to do?" Oh well. A small and, if you ask me, a pretty normal range of integration, separation dialectic. You know, one benefit of surviving some real marriage-threatening conflicts and watching most of our children receive college degrees and success with their own families. So we don't really get nearly as out of round nearly as often or nearly as easily. You know, each morning I still take Ann a hot coffee. I call that the morning happy face - morning anger face dialectic tension. You might guess I wake up with a smile. It takes Ann a little